what's going on. Good evening, everybody. Apologies, I was having this strange message coming up here, and I was so focused on that, I didn't see we are now live.
We're live.
Good job I didn't swear. So yes, good evening, everybody, and a very warm welcome to our Lyceum night, coming to you from the Paul Spiritualist Church on the south coast of the UK. Great delight. Our guest tonight is the lovely Jason Goldsworthy. He is a certificate holder of the Spiritualist National Union and nearly came to Paul earlier on this year. I'm laughing, and I shouldn't do, Jason. You were a very poorly bunny. You had a TIA, which really just sort of like came out of the blue, as these things do. So, of course.
It did, yes.
So, welcome, Jason. It's so nice to talk to you again. So nice to hear before we went on air that you are on the road to recovery again, which is absolutely marvelous. So great stuff. And tonight's topic is the movement. Now, this is something you suggested quite a while ago, and it just seems right now that we take... Excuse me, I've just noticed something is funny going on. I'm just going to have to take the link of this and share it to the church page, because for some reason it is not on the church page. Anyway, yes, the movement. So, Jason, sorry, mate. Good evening, and very warm welcome to you. Perhaps if you could tell us a wee bit about yourself there, while I have a quick fiddle here and get something done about why I'm not out there. All right, over to you, please, Jason.
All right, then. Hello. Well, I'm Jason Goldsworthy, and I've been a medium for many years. When I first started finding out about the spirit world was when I was a small child, but I was told it was my dreams, and in the end, that led on through my teenage years, where I put it down to my imagination. In 2003, I lost a loved one, and all of a sudden, my world was turned upside down, and my loved one couldn't wait to let me know that life continued, and there was an afterlife, and it was real. And since that day, everything's changed for me, where now I do many spiritual services in different countries online, but also travel internationally as well, serving where I can serve and bringing more people into contact with the spirit world and the spirituality of spirit as well. I think that's in a nutshell, Lawrence, what I do.
That's wonderful, and thank you so much, because I've just rectified whatever was wrong. But never mind. Very interesting. Thank you, Jason. And you did mention something there which I'd like to touch on a wee bit later. But the topic of tonight, we're talking about, because we call spiritualism the movement. What's your thoughts on that description at this time, please?
Well, I think my thoughts are in two places. Like, what is the movement today, and what was the movement when spiritualism began in 1948 on the 31st of March with the Fox Sisters, and then there was the birth of spiritualism. We have seen in those times, and when we look back and research those times, there was a community of people working together to prove that life continued, and they were looking at the phenomena of spiritualism and celebrating that phenomena in forms of talks like Emma Hardage Britton would do. She'd be celebrating these talks. She'd be going to see the phenomena of spirit, which would be in those days the raps and the taps on the tables. But that got changed day by day into a movement of spiritualism, where people banded together in a community-wise, wherever she traveled to. And if you read her biography, she was met by people with the same ideas and the same, so they moved together to create change. And that's how I see spiritualism, how it used to be, this movement of creating change, but it was a community that worked together. So if you were going to go, and just imagine that all happening, Lawrence, without Facebook or internet. It was all organized. Travel to America, meet some people, travel back to England, and these people were moved. But today, when we look at organized spiritualism, we have spiritualist churches, and they do their best, and they have to keep to certain rules to uphold these churches for the laws and the bylaws and these things. But it's like we're the movement is really the spirituality of spiritualism. Like, how can we bring more of that spirituality into our spiritual churches, into spiritualism, and where do we see this community of helping each other? I think that's again just the beginning of this talk, Lawrence.
Brilliant. Well, we did have a little conversation before we went online tonight, and again we're using this word. We're talking about the spirituality, but I just want to recap there, because we hear a lot about the pioneers, as we should. As we should. It should be fundamental to our learning. It should be shared to our congregations. Listen, I'm not saying I'm brilliant and I know everything, but I know what I present, and I know the intrinsic value of what we do. I say to people at the beginning of the service, as part of the introduction, we're all here to listen to somebody we've lost. And that sentence can get a little bit glib, but when you take that process of losing somebody, of the initial news, the shock, the mourning, the funeral, everything that we go through, and we are talking year, 2 years, 3 years, sometimes more, going through that process of learning to live without them. And we, in our churches, in our centres and online, have I'm searching for the right word here, the opportunity, my favourite word, I love opportunity. We have the opportunity to present those people honestly, truly, and wholeheartedly again to people. And this is where I start to feel a bit sad and a little bit detracted with things, because I'm not seeing, again, we go back through time to the pioneers' days. As I was saying to you at the beginning, reading the books of those days, the stand of the mediumship was truly phenomenal. The mediums, you can go onto YouTube, there's some wonderful demos by Gordon Higginson. If you listen to the level of evidence, not information, evidence about these communicators. And I posed this question to you before we went live. I said, why do we not see that today? The spirit world hasn't changed. They haven't withdrawn this. So therefore, we need to look at what we're doing, how we are linking with the other world. Because that onus, I believe, is very firmly on us. It's proven through the movement that we can do this. Yet we don't see it. I know I'm going a little bit off topic here, so please feel free to drag me back in.
So as we just if I move into that, so the movement in spiritualism was they celebrated in the beginning the phenomena of spiritualism.
Yeah.
And what you just said there was about the phenomena of spiritualism. What Gordon Higginson can bring through was that phenomena. It was that where you thought, wow, that proves life continues. And so what if what I'm understanding what you're saying, Lawrence, is that you're not seeing that level at this standard at the moment within spiritualist churches that you've been to, or what you're experiencing. And I feel that when we look at the spiritual world and how they communicate with us, that they have infinite possibilities. And we have our mind on to translate that information to the people within services that we give, and our minds are limited. And if we stay within our limits, then we're never going to step out of our limits, you say. And so I think a lot of mediums, and I've caught myself doing this before, Lawrence, where I thought, oh, you know, I always, when I'm okay, I've got this lady, and it's this lady, and you just suddenly you fall into sometimes when you're doing a lot of demonstrations, you fall into that place of, okay, playing safe or just going with what you got.
Yeah.
And so you see how that can limit the phenomena of spirit. So I've always had to pull myself by the collar and say, right, now do something different.
Yeah.
Now listen to the spirit world and do it like it was the first time. And celebrate the connection with spirit like it was the first time. And in those moments, that's when magic can happen, for not just for me, but for any medium that decides to try this. You know, we could say that when we look at the movement, that spiritualism, proving that life continues, becoming the ambassador for the spirit world, going back years to the pioneers and seeing what they did, we are standing on the shoulders of the pioneers of what they created. So when we look at the evolution of the movement and the evolution of spiritualism, it's like we ourselves are responsible to take it to the next level, or to move ourselves to try something, to do something more. And I think that's what you just mentioned there. I think that's something where you're seeing is that it's not moving.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not moving.
Yeah, I am getting back to it. I know I'm taking a bit of a roundabout route here, but I am getting back to this thing about the movement. Because again, when we go back to the pioneers, the greats, when spiritualism really had that kinetic energy about it, everybody was involved. All right, people would have fallen out in those eras. We're not going to paint it with rose-tinted glasses. Some people would have fallen out with other people, but they would not have let that hindered either their own or their development and their work with the spirit world. But there would have been this huge momentum, this what it should be. You know, when you sit in the service, when you listen to philosophy, when you receive healing, there should be this surge of energy, of interest, of oneness. But we seem to have devolved, of pulling back and losing that crucial element, the movement factor of it. You know, we can get very easily bogged down into doing the same old, same old. We do see within our churches and centres, and sadly we're seeing this coming into the online community as well, a very safe method of play. You know, and there's nothing there. Oh, we don't do that because they won't like it. You know what? Whenever I hear that line, I have to bite. I don't have to bite. I choose to bite. I'll be honest. Because I always ask, number one, who are they? And number two, have you asked they? because we should never assume what our congregations, what our people coming into the churches think and look for and aspire to. And as long as it falls within the remit of spiritualism, absolutely fine. Going off on a sidetrack here, lovely Angela Foster, and I really like this actually. She's just saying there, should we now be talking about the reality of spiritualism? Phenomena even now suggest something completely different.
Should we now be talking about the reality of spiritualism? Phenomena even now suggest something completely different. Yeah, the reality of spiritualism. I mean, when we look at how it is, what you've said, Lawrence, the reality of it is, it's we have spiritualist churches all over the country that are doing their best to make ends meet. And that's organized. That's what we're talking about, organized spiritualism, where people are banding together to uphold churches and create a sanctuary where people can come and really experience a spiritualist service, including the prayer, the this is where my TIA it just needs time to work. I have these moments, but where we can see the experience of the demonstration of spiritualism, but also the speaking, the inspired speaking as well.
Yeah.
But oh, how so important it is for people to experience the everything, you say.
Yeah.
But when I think about this, how it's been put together, it's a lot of work and organization to uphold a church, get everyone to keep going and to do all these things. So that in the reality, there are churches that are not being able to make it. They can't do it. They're closing, and we're looking to attract more people into our churches.
Yeah.
I'm touching on the reality more now. When we go back to how it used to be, it was a celebration of the phenomena which kicked off the movement. And now the movement of today is, where are we? How do we then move from out of this period that you explained feels a little stagnant? And for the lady that just mentioned that, is what is the reality of it? What do you think, Lawrence?
Yeah. No, you've got some really, really good points there. I run a church. I do an exercise with our standing billing. So I'm looking at all the utilities and divide that up by the number of times that we are scheduled to be open throughout the year. And that gives me an idea of what we're looking, what our outlays are to open the doors. Simple as that. Just open the doors, turn the lights on, put the heating on, run the water. Yeah. And we've gone from £19 pre-COVID to £43 now.
Yeah.
Massive hike.
Yeah.
And of course, this is I'm not being victimized by the energy companies. This is applied to everybody.
Yeah.
I really, really get it. It is incredibly, very, very hard to run a church or a centre with one eye on the profit margin. And, I use phrases like that because we are a business as well.
Exactly.
But where one of my concerns is that a demonstration of mediumship seems to be, the fallback for many people. If they work, absolutely great. But again, I'm not seeing them working that well in some instances. And there's this at a loss of what to do. And now I'm going to move into another area, but it is part and fundamental of the movement. When spiritualism really came to the fore in like the 1920s, 1930s in the UK, and you were seeing churches set up every other day. Yeah. And we had this, what I call the industry standard. So the number of people on the committee would have been set in place. And the way things were run would have been set in place, which was fine for those days. Because, you know, when we look at the social background of the time, in that era, the wage earner would have been the husband. The wife would have not gone out to work. And that's not a sexist remark, that's history. You can go and argue with the history books, not with me, please, on that one. So we had this huge pool of people, educated people, who could step in and uphold these posts. But that is now nearly 100 years ago. You know, and the economic and social structure has changed dramatically. So I look at, because I try to go under what the issue is and find out more. And I look at it and think, well, maybe it's time that where we started looking at the structure, the way our churches are governed. After 2 years, quite hard work, we have finally got our charity status. And we are a CIO foundation. So that means the trustees are the responsible board for running the church. They are responsible to act within the charity laws and the trustee laws. We don't have membership anymore available to people in the church. And the church now has a stability. But where I'm seeing a lot of churches, and we've just had some really bad incidents with AGMs going horribly wrong and turning into carnage, because they're forced into every year, we've got to do all these votes and everything. You know, and Jason, you're a professional person. I'm your line manager, all right? Just, I know. Have a try. What are you doing here? No.
My line manager right now.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm your line manager. Jason, you're doing a wonderful job. Thank you so much. You know, your attendance is great. You know, everything you're doing is absolutely wonderful. However, I'm going to re-advertise your job at the end of the year, and you're more than welcome to reapply for it. How good do you feel about that?
I don't think you'd feel, you being my line manager telling me that, I don't think I'd feel happy about that.
Yeah.
If I'd done a good job, I thought it would be naturally continue.
I use that just to highlight where I'm looking at with committee structures, and suggest that it may be a good time to review our committee structures, to put people in longer posts, to allow them, because nobody can turn a business around in a year. And if you think you're only going to be in there for a year, you may not try some of the things. But there's these opportunities, and this is not me tearing down the old institutions or having a pop at any individuals or organizations. It's me looking at the movement and looking at what the underpinning things are, the things that make the movement move or not move or counterproductive. So maybe this is an area where we could start looking at the way our churches and centres are governed and the governance of them. And is there potential for benefit to bring in longer services, short, you know, smaller committees? Because I feel sorry for the churches that have got about 10 people turning up for a service and they've got to find 8 people to put on a committee. Because you end up, and I do see this, I know this goes on, people end up in posts simply because they've got a pulse and they can sit upright. They've got no interest in that post, but they don't want to see their church go down, but they don't want to do that job. Very difficult. It's very difficult. And as I say, this is just part and parcel of, I think, trying to bring back some stability to the church. I will talk as the church. But yeah, it needs to be stable, because once you have that stability, then you can drive change even better. And in driving change, you will then create movement. Now, there's a lot of people out there are going furiously typing away or sticking pins in dolls at me, and I will make no apologies for it. Everybody that goes on a committee, well done. Well done, you. Absolutely well done, you. But I think, we need to look at the actual structure and foundation, because, as I say, 100 years have passed. And, we are seeing that the movement is not moving too well. So we've got to look at the factors that affect that. You're looking at me stunned and shocked now, thinking, oh my God, this man's mad. Get me out of here.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, I can understand that when we look at the church committees and what they do, and people giving up their time to do that to support the church, that's also about, a part of the movement, which is the community. But
yeah.
From what I'm picking up, what you're saying, Lawrence, it would be good if that could be a little bit more streamlined, where it wasn't so complicated. If I'm hearing you right,
you are.
And I feel what you're saying, I feel that simplicity, the more simple that you can keep things, the better it will be. I think I'm being heard, but I think Lawrence is frozen. But if I'm not being heard,
no, I can hear you. And
you can hear me. Okay, so you just froze for a minute.
No.
But keeping things streamlined, and I think simplicity, because when we look at it, basically, if we have, I used to work in a kitchen. And in 5-star deluxe hotels and restaurants. Now, if one chef is making the soup, it's going to be superb soup. But if we had 3 chefs making the soup's not going to be very well. It's going to be different. There's going to be ideas. Someone's going to put more pepper in it. The other ones. If we've got 8 people making the soup, it's going to be a bit. So the simpler you can keep it to, which was what you're talking about, Lawrence.
Yeah.
Is going to keep it the more streamlined, and you're going to get the result, a better result for what you're looking for. But obviously, it's also what you said. Economically, what's going in the world with everyone is most of the time 2 people have got to work in a family instead of 1 person, so they've got less time. So I can only give 3 hours. So if we have more people that can only give 3 hours, then maybe we can fill up the. So it can get complex quite quickly, just trying to fit in with what society is creating for us in our home life as well. You say,
yeah, no, I agree 100% there. It is one of those situations you would love the magic wand to wave.
Yeah.
Sadly, mine's run out of juice. It's solar powered, so it hasn't seen any sun for the last 6 months. But
I think that the big difference is, and I think that's what is in England at the moment, is the laws and the bylaws that need to be abided by. Church needs to have a certain number of people on committees. They need to have a representative. They need to be registered. There's a lot of hoops they need to jump through to actually be able to uphold a church. So, and I don't think that's very streamlined, Lawrence. I don't think that's very streamlined.
No. And again, this is down to maybe affiliations to different organizations or the independents. But no matter what, you still have duties, legal duties, to maintain, and not only maintain certain policies, but actually express that you are regularly reviewing them, an update. You see, now we have that in the legality side. We have to produce that we are not only produce this documents about the governance of the church, but that is regularly looked at and reviewed to see if it is still fit for purpose in the course of 1 year.
Yeah.
And as I say, maybe in the course of 100 years, there is an opportunity there now to just, be dispassionate, take away people, places, and associations and just go, does that fit today's world? Is that doable? Is that workable? There's never a wasted effort, because even if the answer is, yep, it's all good, it all fits, it all flows, great. That's going to give you even more impetus to go forward, again, creating the movement.
Exactly. It's about evolution and change. I think that's what it's about, and it's about really looking at evaluating what have you got, and how can you make it more simpler or streamline or easier. I think it's looking at that, and obviously the things like this can't happen overnight, because from what you've explained to me, with all the complexity there in England, and with the committees and subcommittees and affiliations and everything, when you have something so complex, it's quite difficult to suddenly make that overnight streamline. You see?
Oh yeah.
And then we have a lot of people are like, but I don't like change. It's worked like this for the last 100 years, so let's keep it, like this. And so, and it is, well, when we're looking at what is being, because this is where I see it is our new up and coming spiritualists, the youngsters of today. What is changing within our movement that's going to be good for them to come in to a spiritualist church, to experience spiritualism, you see, because they're totally different than we are all our years on, holding on to the different structures, committees and things, and it's like you want them to feel included. And it is like spiritualism is about community and about coming together and about being welcome as one family, really, spiritual family, let's put it like that. So that somebody, the moment they walk in through the door, that they feel supported.
Yeah.
That they feel supported. And the spiritualist churches should feel like when you walk into them, it's a home from home. It's a home from home. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree 100% there. And I mean, it is that basic tenet. And again, this is something that sometimes foxes me, where we can go out and, we are naturally empathetic people. We are naturally sensitive people. And you can sometimes go out and meet people, go to places where that lack of empathy, or, there's a committee war going on or something. And why are people surprised when you can pick that up when you walk in the door?
Yeah.
We've not only got to be warm, clean, friendly, open, available, and offering things of great interest to everybody in our community, but we've also got to be morally, ethically, and spiritually clean in doing that.
Yeah.
I'm going to get sacked after this, but never mind. So I may as well go out with a bang.
Well, I mean, we both took on this talk because we feel that it's important for the movement, but it's important for spiritualism. The reason I accepted spiritualism into my life was because it was something that I knew just fitted so well in with my beliefs.
Yep.
That there was a spiritual world, a divine God, that was far more higher than me and knew more than I did, and there was so much that could be learned from that. And when we look at the soul as a progression, everlasting evolution, I always feel responsible a little bit when I go into spiritualist church, because I'm like, I love to be of service and I love to do spiritualist churches. And when I come, I said, I just feel that, we are standing on the shoulders of the pioneers that went before us, that put everything in place. And like you said, they did a very good job to create this foundation. And then it's like, what our responsibility now is to look at what can we do that can create change in a positive way, that can look at problems and resolve problems in the best way possible, in a humane way, in a way that is really good for everyone. I think it's looking at, at the end of the day, nobody's perfect. And I think that's one thing to know. People are doing the best they can in the positions that they are, whatever. And it's knowing that's got to be respected as well. And I think to see what has moved, what has changed, that's a celebration in itself.
Yeah.
But like you were saying, in the movement, it's like just continually looking at what do we need to change? What can we do to make this more open for younger generations to come into it, for people to be celebrating spiritualism, not just the phenomena of the demonstration, but the spirituality of the speakers and the speaking as well.
Indeed.
You mentioned Gordon Higginson's demonstrations, but I remember hearing stories about Gordon Higginson's speaking where people came in to listen to him speak, and it was phenomenal. And the speakers, I just believe that inspired speaking, that philosophy is so important to bring people to bring people into alignment of, okay, this is community. This is what we do. We celebrate spirit together in this home from home.
Yeah, well, I agree 100%. I will use one of my favourite quotes, the late great Jean Bassett. At the turn of the century, she was saying, we used to fill places like the Albert Hall with philosophy. We used to fill these places. They would come from near and far to listen to us. And people say today, where are these people today? Where have they gone? And she said, maybe they haven't gone, but maybe we've stopped saying things to have their attention.
Yeah.
And that was really powerful. I never had the privilege of meeting that lady, but I just absolutely adore. And that brings in nicely a comment here from lovely Angela. And she's exactly the same thread there. It's also because we're not moving people onto the stage beyond here is the message from the dead. If we don't share that, the people won't know what to expect. But as you say, without personal discipline to move beyond the basic messages, we can't blame the congregation. We need to lead, not to follow as mediums.
Exactly. I mean, I agree completely, because we certainly need to lead, not follow as mediums. Lead by example. I think Angela's hit the nail right on the head there.
You have a habit of doing that.
Yeah. well done, Angela. But yeah, when you look at it, we can create change wherever we go if we take that responsibility on ourselves. If someone says, you walk to a spiritual, we only have the philosophy for 5 minutes. Oh, well, I'm sorry, but I normally do philosophy a little longer. I would like to do that. That's how I'm trained. You got to undergo these conversations. You got to undergo these conversations. I mean, I love philosophy. I really do. I love to listen to it. I love to experience it, and I just, it's so uplifting, not just for one person, but for everyone, And when done correctly, it can bring a message to everyone that is so needed, so needed.
Very much.
Yeah.
And not only sharing that philosophy, but the opportunities at times to discuss our philosophy with people.
Yeah.
I know here we have twice a month on our Wednesday nights where we do offer that opportunity for to sit around and discuss the spirituality of spiritualism. And I know the numbers we get for those nights, if I was to put a dem on, it would be totally different. I'd have tenfold the numbers and tenfold the income from it. So I really get why we have, as a movement, become very, very reliant on the demonstrations. But again, I just feel that the spirituality is being neglected or in danger of being neglected. It's all very well for us to stand there and say, my philosophy is we do not die. Great. But what does that mean? What does that mean to somebody walking out the door? What does that mean to somebody who's 22 and struggling with exams or whatever? It means nothing. But when we have these opportunities, and nights like this as well, and nights that we've got coming up, where people have the opportunity to discuss things, are invaluable. And we have this new era since 2020 where we can present things like this. We can have these discussions. And we can share our thoughts, our views, our understandings, rightly, wrongly, but they're up for debate.
Yeah.
Which seems to be an art that's lost, because if I don't agree with you, you're wrong, and that's it. Well, okay. I do love when people say to me things in the form of a statement. I go, okay. And they look at me waiting for me to respond. I'm like, well, I'm not going to respond. You just made a statement. That's fine. That's your opinion.
Yeah.
There's nothing for me there to debate with.
Yeah.
Anyway.
it is good. It's good to be open for debates, to be open for more. But I was thinking also of what was said about people are looking for the message. And I think what was meant by that, Lawrence, is the demonstrating message. Can I get a message?
Yeah.
Message nights, that sort of thing. And that is the thing. I mean, that, like you said, tenfold people will come to it. But even when I do a demonstration of mediumship, in Holland, they're not used to having philosophy. Or when I do it in Germany, they're not used to. I say, I'm just going to say a few words before I do it. So I always share a bit of philosophy. I call it inspired speaking, just to see what comes through. So even when they say, oh, we normally do it this way, and I said, oh, but this is the way I do it. So it's really, like we said, it's us becoming the change that we want to see.
Yeah.
In mediumship, in spiritualism, and in the movement. If we want to see change, we do need to become the leaders, and we do need to lead in example. And these discussions we're having tonight, they're debatable, but it's like, and it's good, because it's speaking to people, giving them ideas, and maybe they'll hear it and they'll be like, okay, what can we do to create change? What can we do to create change? Because let's say you have people falling out within committees, or falling out between two spiritualist organizations or churches or whatever. It's still, it doesn't matter if you've fallen out as people, as human beings. At the end of the day, you can still be supportive from two different aspects. It's not celebrate the other person's work, because they're still doing the same job for spirituality, for spiritualism. And I think that in itself is celebrating that we are all doing our best in our own way. But it's not, we shouldn't be seeing ourselves as just individual. We should be seeing ourselves as the community of movement, even if people are not seeing it in us, but as long as we can see it, you know.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Lovely comment there from the lovely Libby, going back to previous part of the conversation. And she's saying there's layer and layer of rules and regs. It's all very clunky and it's all a bit old-fashioned. That's very interesting, picking up on that energy there about, time has moved on.
Yeah.
So we need, in business, we had this practice that once every 4 months we would pick people from different departments, get them together, not a big crowd, only about 4 or 5, and look at certain tasks and jobs and going, do they still function? Because it's so easy to get a system set up. And I do understand it, because when we change something, that is an action. And every time you create an action, you cannot but create a reaction to that. So I do get that. I do understand that. But we can just look at some of our practices and go, does that fit what we're doing today? If it does, great. If it doesn't, okay, where can we improve? And that's a word, improve. How can we improve what we do? So thank you, Libby.
Layers upon layers of rules and regs. Well, yeah, very clunky. Well, it is like, we can see like how it is having to have these rules, regulations, people in certain places that they're helping to hold that in place. There goes a lot of time into it, and it is like looking, like you said, maybe a realignment and looking, say, oh, would this not be better for you, or this not better for you? It's looking at, becoming a little bit more, looking at the flexibility and not the not the set in stone, looking at it.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, yeah, there are so many regulations and things that need to be upholded anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, we know what our legal obligations are.
Yeah.
And they do have to be upheld. But then again, we can look at those and just go, well, okay, well, it doesn't have to be one person's job. We could, not everybody needs to be on a committee. This is another thing, because here at Poole, before we created the charity, our committee was only 3 in number, because, and again, please, I don't say things being proud or arrogant or Mr. Big or anything like that. It's not in. If I needed something doing, I would just ask the church. And do you know what? No end of help comes forward, because people actually want to help. They want to be part. And by doing that, you are creating this community. You're involving people, because most people, they don't want to be sat on a committee. They don't want to be tied down to every month sitting around a table discussing the latest tea cozy or something like that. They just want to do their little bits. And when we can change that, when we can bring more of that in, people are great, because they, my congregation here, or the church congregation here, love to give back by helping out, by doing things. We opened up on Christmas Day last year now. And I had 8 volunteers step forward, because they wanted to be part of it. They wanted to give back.
Wonderful.
Yeah. The rally weekend was very volunteer needy for the various events, and everybody just stepped forward. It was great. Absolutely wonderful. And again, everybody who stepped forward, not only am I deeply indebted for them helping out, I know they got a kick out of it, because they felt like I've given something back to my church. I'm part of it. I'm involved. Therefore, the community bond gets stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
Anyway, over to the comments. Ursula Goldsworthy. I feel that... You know her?
No, I've never heard of her. I feel there should be less restrictions. Oh, it's my wife.
Is
No,
it?
I feel, yeah.
Fair enough.
I feel that there should be less restrictions for speakers. It's a good comment. When we look at the restrictions in place, I think if you want to become a speaker, and I think restrictions of maybe what she's, I'm trying to think what she might be touching on, which is probably that we can't talk about everything. We still need to keep within a certain. So there are limitations and restrictions that speakers need to keep to. Needs to be in the vein of spiritualism, and I think it's that there is a way to say, well, a good speaker should be able to speak about anything within their philosophy, but it still needs to. I think there were restrictions where you need to mention at least 2 principles in there, or 3 if you can, while speaking.
Okay.
And so I and that's some looking at the restrictions for speakers. So you've got the restrictions there. And also the restrictions of what a certain, maybe a church would like. They'll say, oh, our speakers are normally like this. But when we look at the philosophy as it is, it's like whenever philosophy is given, it's always touching naturally on the principles without naming them in particular.
Yeah.
So I think that's what she's talking about. But yeah, I think if a speaker feels free to speak, then they will be able to open up and share a lot more of their knowledge and whatever is coming through them at the moment that they're giving the philosophy.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Ursula. Beautiful lady.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ursula. And again, within that banner comes in this other energy of seeing and encouraging more of the spirituality side of our evidential mediums rather than just the mechanics, rather than just the nuts and bolts of how to construct a message, how to make a link, how to whatever to deliver that message, but actual recognizing and encompassing the spirituality side of our demonstrators. Because the more you do that, the more then you'll be able to give. I've been privileged to hear some marvelous orators, absolute. They've just sat there and delivered the address, and if they'd said, right, that's the end of the service, I would have gone home a really happy bunny. Because what they said, what they brought through, because they're working still with their mediumship. And this is something, that some people maybe fail to grasp. Mediumship is a state of being. It is not a defined thing. So mediumship is not being on the platform giving the evidence. Mediumship is being that interface between us and the spirit world. And again, when we think of the spirit world, it's access to everything. Absolutely everything. So of course the inspiration is going to be there. And obviously the spirit world are very intelligent. They know what our world's like. So it's no use delivering a philosophy of 40 years ago. Our congregations need and want and yearn to hear things that are going to help them when they walk out of the church doors today. They're going to help them as a person. They're going to lift them as a spiritual person. They're going to guide them onto that spiritual path of unfoldment. And this is, one of the greatest acts, I think, with our philosophy, that when you get these absolutely gifted speakers, they can just talk about things and you're mesmerized. They can hold the entire congregation. it's almost like you're spellbound, and it really resonates with you. So again, this is an area I'd like to see a vast improvement upon, with our development paths of people to encompass that side of as well. It's not all about being stood up there. That's the shop window. That's often accepted as the shop window. You know, you've got a whole store to fill out, a whole store of delights and treasures for people to come in and look at, to be a part of. So I'm going off on a tangent here, so please just stop me, Jason.
Certainly hear what you're saying, Lawrence. And when we look at what the speaking part of it is, I've spoken in churches, in different churches, and done the philosophy in different churches in England and in Wales and different places. But I've also been in Holland, Canada, and spoken online to America. And everywhere you speak is different. Every country you speak is different. And when you feel that you're speaking, when you bring through the philosophy and it's connecting, it's really, you're feeling what's coming through for the congregation.
Yep.
Phenomena of what Spirit is bringing through for the congregation. And it's like pure in the moment. You are limited to what you're allowed to bring. So if I'm in England, okay, and we need to keep to these regulations, restrictions, make sure we stay in the car. But still, we need to be pushing the boundaries where we can talk about what's going on today. What's going in today in people's lives? What do people need to hear today? And I found when I've spoken in Canada, it's been a lot freer in spiritualist churches there, where you can just you can speak, and it's like, okay, so it's but still you've got to be aware of other things, like cultural other things that have changed, like with them you got to be careful of using certain words and pronouns, and so once you're aware of this, it's like, okay, so you can bring it in the way that you need to bring. But what I've noticed is that I find myself enjoying every moment of the speaking, whether it's in Canada or whether it's in England or Wales or wherever I am. But you always are limited by the restrictions of the place that you are speaking. It's always, naturally you pick it up as a medium. What I find also, we're going to move on to, we're talking about the movement. We have the 7 principles in England. They are as they are. And in Canada, they've been altered and changed for the Canadian people, because obviously they've had to move with the movement to fit in with the people that have problems with, the pronouns and things that are being used within these principles. And so I found that in that way, understanding that very freeing, to be to feel the freedom of, okay, I understand why that they've been changed in certain parts, that it's open to everybody. So we would have the brotherhood, where they would have it, the humanity, that would, the connection, community. And it says it right there. Community is, and that is the Canadian spiritualism is more about community. Bring it in. They would have also cultural things that would come in that would also affect. But it's very freeing to know it's a lot about community, and that's what you're saying right here. That essence of community within church, that helping hand. That is the movement of what we're having with it. Really, when we look at it, what is spiritualism? It's not just the phenomena. It's not just the speaking. It's the whole package.
Yeah.
But also, it's about the people that are coming in to our churches they're the most important people that are walking through the door. The moment that they get touched by spirit, whether it's via the philosophy or what takes place with the evidence, where they say, oh my God, that life continues. There is more to this life than I ever thought there was. Wow, how did the speaker know to speak those words? And to be touched by spirit, like an injection of spirit into them. The moment that they're there, then they feel that they've totally come home.
Mm.
And this is when I was saying, what is the movement? I'm getting emotional when I'm talking about this, but it's like I feel that that's the movement. And whenever I've been speaking, whether it's in England, Canada, or wherever online, I've always been aware of people's what people feel or needs as well. But as a speaker, you let it come as it is needed today. And what you were saying, Lawrence, we don't want to be talking about things that have been going on like 50 years ago and keep repeating, because the evolution of spiritualism should be the philosophy today.
Yeah.
Not the philosophy of 50 years ago. Like I said, we're standing on the shoulders of the pioneers, and we just need to move it to the next level.
Yeah. And they want us to continue their work, not copy.
Exactly.
You know, and anyway, it's lots of thoughts going on here. Lovely Matt Harris, who's saying he loves philosophy, hearing people's experience of spirit, such as being guided, feeling their presence, and more. It is affirming and deepens understanding of how the spirit world works. And yeah, well said, Matt, because that is a really good starting point for people when they, when they can go, oh my God, I thought it was only me.
Yeah.
When we can remove that alienation that we feel, we don't want to say anything because I might get carted off. But nobody's ever felt this. And then suddenly you find yourself in a room full of people go, yeah, we do.
Yeah. It's so nice what Matt said, because then you feel again that sense of community. I'm amongst people that understand.
Yeah. Lovely Libby, and she's just affirming there. If more philosophy came from the platform, maybe that would encourage people to find out more. It would.
Yeah.
We will always have people that don't want to hear the philosophy, and do you know what? That's fine. That's absolutely fine. Seriously, we want people to love what we love because we're human. And when we put our love into something, I'm sure all the wives here, you just put your love into a meal and the old man goes, yeah, it's all right. But it's the same in our churches and centres. We put our love and our time and our effort into that. And yeah, there are going to be people, for whatever reason, the time may not be right for them. It may not have been delivered in a way that was pertinent to them, whatever. If you know you've done your best, if you know you continue to do your best, and you know in your heart of heart, and we do, because again, we're sensitive individuals. I've walked away from people thinking, yeah, I really didn't handle that properly, or no, I need to go back there because that's wrong. But we know that we're delivering what we've got. And if it doesn't appeal to people, because we tend to latch on to the one negative comment being made. Yeah. Whereas we may have just had 24 people walk out saying, or not saying that was a great service, but going out having had a good experience. But one person didn't like it, and that becomes the focus. And that's our human nature, and we need to balance that at times and just go, okay, that's your opinion. You may have a valid point. Great. Thank you for bringing that in. Or, okay, I don't think we may be the church for you. That's not a problem. That seriously isn't. And this lovely lady is back.
Lovely. Yes. Let spirit guide you in the speaking. There you go.
Thank you, Ursula. Wonderful. Definitely.
So a big rewind to Emma Hardage Britton. She was renowned for her speaking in great audiences in America at the time. She drew audiences because she was speaking about the movement. She was speaking about the change, and she was guided by spirit. And so bringing that into this day and age, bringing more that guided by spirit philosophy, that's what we're looking for. That's what I feel would be the move forward here.
Yeah. And going back to Emma's day and beyond that too, I mean, that was the era where it was the reformist movement. It was new. It was coming into a world still that was in the throes of like the Industrial Revolution, where things were changing at a fast pace. And so this new religion, this new philosophy suddenly hit the streets, and people were like, wow. I mean, at that time, that's where we saw the division, where the reformists went one way and the traditionalists created, this is where Christian spiritualism came from, that era, that the reformist way was that one step too far. We need a little adage to orthodoxy here. But then actually, when we look at the reformist movement, if we look at a standard church service, it's an orthodox base. But we were saying new things. We were being inspirational. We were uplifting people, inspiring people through the philosophy. The demonstrations of mediumship, where we started to see the upsurge of mental mediumship, but still in the throes of physical mediumship and of healing. After the healing of that era was truly phenomenal. They supported this reformist view. They supported this new wave of energy coming into the world. They weren't the reason that people went to a spiritualist church to hear the message, to see the dem, to get healing. They came to hear the inspiration coming from the other world. And this is an area that I'm very keen to look at, not recreate, but just look at and go, okay, because as I say, the spirit world haven't changed. The spirit world haven't gone anywhere. It's us that's changed. So, and with that knowledge, okay, the changes where we're seeing currently are uncomfortable for me, but that also means change is not impossible. So I can do something about it. Simple as that. I can change it myself.
Change what you would like to see changing within this world. I think that's it. Change what you would like to see. But absolutely, I believe that is a wonderful start there. And these discussions, even if they're not pointed at anyone, absolutely not pointed at anyone at all, we're just looking at the whole thing, the whole spiritualist movement, and to say, what is it like? What needs to change, and can we move to change, or can we bring in things that would make it a better place? I know what it's like to be in committees and subcommittees and things, because I work in in Holland. It's got a different name, so I don't know what it is in English, but it's where I have to I have to sit opposite the board, and I'm an occupational council that needs to sit opposite the board of directors and talk about how to change the business, which is in health in the nursing business, and really I know what it's like to have so many things that you need to keep to point with. But it's like, so obviously there's so much respect for people that are doing that, but it's like looking for how can we inspirationally change things to make them more streamlined, which is what Lawrence said, to make them quite simple, to make things better for our churches, but also for our churches to look at the possibility of making their things simple. And if change is going to need to take place, it's going to need to take place from from all levels, really.
Yeah.
All levels.
Indeed.
And there shouldn't be two spiritual or spiritualist associations falling out, or people falling out. When we look at it, we're all doing the same thing. We're all bringing people into our places and bringing them forward so that they can touch and feel and understand on a hopefully on a soul level what spiritualism is.
Definitely. Really well said.
Yeah.
Jason, thank you so much. Well done. Thank you, Ursula, as well. And thank you, everybody that's contributed, listened. Again, there may be things in there that are challenging. And challenge isn't bad. Challenge isn't bad because it makes you review things and go, no, where I am is all good. That's great. That is all good. A lot of what we do is all good. But it never hurts just to look, see where we can improve, adapt, adopt, improve, an old business adage. And bring in that revitalization. And see the churches full of people embracing this knowledge that there is no death, not just sat there in the vain hope of maybe getting a message if they're lucky or whatever, but actually embracing it. Not only embracing it when they're in the church, embracing it when they're outside, embracing it when they're on the bus, embracing it when they're driving a car. That's going to be a challenge, I know, for some people. But and looking, and you look at the world anew, you look at everything fresh, you see the creative hand in everything. Anyway, down boy, down. Jason, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everybody who's joined in and listened in tonight. Just to remind you, you can watch a spiritualist church service live online from Poole tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. BST. And our demonstrator tomorrow is Stephen Magar from Portsmouth, who's going to be with us. In the meantime, we hope you have a wonderful evening, especially everybody who's having the good weather at the moment. It's so nice to be warm again and not wet. So enjoy it. Good night, everybody.
Good night.